Hey, and we are live. Welcome, everybody, to Training Talk right here exclusively on Personal Defense Network. I'm Grant Cunningham, your genial host, and this is the show where we talk about you, about your life, and how to protect it. In the next hour, we're going to explore how you can prepare and equip yourself to face that worst case scenario and keep you and your family safe from harm. Now, this is the show. If you're returning, you remember this. But if you're new, this is the show where we don't do politics or religion on this show. So you're not going to hear any, and you're not going to hear rather any crazy conspiracy theories or sort of fringe commentary. Just reliable, responsible information that you can put to use right away. And I'm going to ask a favor straight out. I'm just going to ask this straight out at the beginning. If you like this show, would you please share it with your friends and family? Put it up, put on your social media that you're watching Training Talk right now. Go ahead and do that and share it with your friends and family, people that you know who might be able to use the kind of responsible, actionable information that we put out here on Training Talk on the first and third Thursdays of every month. I'd appreciate you sharing it. I'm sure they will too. They will appreciate that you thought enough of them to share this information with them. So please do that with your friends, family, in-laws, outlaws, all of those people would very much appreciate it. So here we are, 1st of December, and gosh, I don't know about you, but this year is winding down in a hurry. It's already the 1st of December, and somebody has already remarked, yes, I did get my haircut. I do this every 6 months, whether I need to or not. And so it was time. My 6 months were up, so it was time to cut a lot of my hair off, and so here we go. I am still, however, I'm going to show this. I am still the original tactical hippie, even with shorter hair. I actually I went to the hairdresser and I said, I still want to look like a hippie, but I want to look like a well-groomed hippie. And she just kind of laughed, and I think she started drinking heavily about that time, actually. So welcome to the show. If you're new to the show, thank you for stopping by and spending your Thursday evening with us. And if you're returning, thank you for coming back and learning some more about self-defense here on Personal Defense Network. I've got a great show for you tonight. We've got two guest experts on in the first half of the hour. Andy Leffler is going to be talking about his recent article on Personal Defense Network. And this is one, I love this article. I'm really looking forward to talking about this. And he did a little experiment with some of his students, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And in the second half of the hour, our friend Josh Gideon from No Soft Targets is going to be on, and we're going to be talking about something that he put up on Personal Defense Network a few weeks ago, talking about the future of training. And we're going to talk about how training is changing and how you can use some of the technology that's coming up, including some of the technology right here on Personal Defense Network, to train and to better prepare yourself to deal with life's adversities. So that's all coming up, and hopefully we'll get to a viewer email too. I got an email just the other day that I wanted to share with you, and a lot of times I respond via email to these things because it may be a while before we get to them, but this just came in the other day, and being fundamentally lazy, I didn't want to have to type out whole response, so we're going to try to get to it today. And but before that, of course, you know it, you love it. It's time for Grant's Rant. And this is regarding the sad attack that we had on the Ohio State University campus, where, interestingly enough, where our first guest, Andy, is from. He's an alumni there, and they live very close to it. So they were kind of in the thick of things. But as you probably know, a young gentleman crashed his car into a building, got out with a knife, and tried to attack a number of people with it. Police officer shot him, killed him, and because of the shots, the campus went into lockdown. They issued a run, hide, fight alert. And this is what I want to talk about because a lot of people in the defensive training world, and particularly those in the gun world, reacted very negatively to this. And I think it's rather misguided. A lot of people, as soon as the run, hide, fight recommendation was made through Twitter and through text alerts to the students on campus, a lot of people criticize that. They said, this is silly. Run, hide, fight doesn't do anything. They should have guns. And of course, making fun of it. And we see this all the time. Whenever we see an attack on a school, in this particular case, a college, a lot of people come out and criticize this policy. And I think that's misguided. And here's why. For a couple of generations at least now, we've been teaching our kids from the time they're in elementary school right on up through the time they're in college that violence is bad, that they shouldn't do anything to resist violence, that they shouldn't ever fight. Of course, that's not good. And that they should leave these things to the professionals. And now, as they become adults, they're used to this particular point of view, and they have to be told that it's okay to fight to save their lives or to save the lives of other innocent people. This is a big mindset change for a lot of people. And it's not something that a lot of people find very comfortable or very easy to reconcile. And so the idea of the run, hide, fight recommendations that are now becoming common is to essentially give people permission to save themselves and to save the people around them. Now, run, hide, fight, let's get this out of the way. It's not perfect. Run really needs to be talked about in terms of evade, and people need to be taught how to run away from danger. It means if you're going to run, don't run any place that's going to make you less safe. Have an idea of where you're going and why you're going there. In terms of hide, we need to talk in terms of barricade into a defensible position rather than just cowering in a corner behind a curtain. We would rather see evade. And of course, fight. What we would like to talk about is how to fight, because again, a lot of people don't know how to fight, particularly if they don't have a purpose-built weapon in their hands. People need to be taught how to fight with a fire extinguisher or a chair or whatever else might be in their environment. There's still a lot of work to be done, and the run, hide, fight is certainly not ideal. There's a lot of room for misinterpretation, and it requires training to go along with it. But the important thing is that we're giving people permission to protect themselves. We're giving people permission to protect those people around them. And I think that's incredibly important. As a society, if we're going to reduce the number of casualties from these kinds of attacks, the people who are there, the victims of the attack, need to be able to respond and protect themselves. If they want to carry a gun, I think that would be great if more campuses allowed that. But let's face it, only a small percentage of people are going to do that, and a lot of college students aren't of an age where they can anyway. So we do need to be talking at the college age and at the high school age and at the middle school age and at the grade school or elementary school. If you're a newer generation than I am, we need to talk about evading and barricading and, when necessary, fighting. So no, I don't think it's something we should be ridiculing. I think it's something that we should be encouraging. I think it's something that we should be clarifying. I think it's something that we should be teaching. But the fact is, we need to start someplace. And that someplace is, in this particular case, run, hide, fight. Run, hide, fight. Excuse me. Oh, boy, that was awful. I think it's really important that we not make fun of this, that we in fact step in and help out wherever we can to train these people, these young people, how to do this. So that's my rant for today. And our thoughts certainly go out with all the people at Ohio State University. The last I heard, thankfully, there were no casualties except for the attacker, which is how it should be. All right. Before we get to our first guest, I want to very, very quickly talk to you a little bit about the free Personal Defense Network newsletter. You've heard me talk about this. Hundreds of thousands of people are taking the Personal Defense Network weekly newsletter. It comes in your email box. Tells you everything that's happening here at Personal Defense Network, all the new videos, all the new articles, discounts on things. Sometimes there's even information about discounts on products from some of our supporting sponsors here at Personal Defense Network. Great. It tells you about the show. It tells you when the show is on, so you never forget to tune in to Training Talk, which is good because I use it to remind me when I have to tune into Training Talk. So get on the website. If you're on the website and you're watching the show on the Personal Defense Network website, down below is a link that you can click on to sign up for the newsletter. Otherwise, there are lots of places all over the Personal Defense Network site where you can sign up for the weekly email. Do it. Join the hundreds of thousands of other people that are getting this great information right to their email box. Completely free. Did I mention it was free? Yeah, completely free. All right. My first guest tonight is Andy Leffler. And Andy is the lead instructor at Blackwing Shooting Center in Delaware, Ohio. And he's written an interesting article that I want to talk with that I wanted to discuss tonight because it really is pretty interesting. Andy is a frequent PDN contributor, although this is his first time. I think this is his first time here on Training Talk. So we're going to have some fun. Andy Leffler, are you there?
Hi, Grant. I'm here.
All right. So Andy and Andy, if the name is Leffler is familiar, yes, this is the same Leffler as Julie Leffler, who she and Andy run Mid Ohio IMB, and so they keep it in the family. Andy is a phenomenal shooting instructor there at Blackwing Shooting Center, and Andy, you wrote an interesting article, and I really want to talk because this is great. Do us a favor, just kind of start at the beginning. And you did this little experiment with your students over a long period of time, actually, focusing on what you saw them doing when they were trying to reload their guns. So give us just a quick rundown of what you saw happening and the experiment that you set up.
Sure, Grant, I'd be happy to. What would happen is we would run a home defense handgun class, and the class is essentially a combination of both practical advice of things they can do to make their home a harder target, just common sense things like that. But it also obviously included some shooting exercises too. One of our big recommendations is the use of something like a fast access mini vault. A lot of us keep a handgun staged in something like that. So in the event that we become aware that the home is being breached or something like that, we can move the family to the safe area. We can begin the contacting 911, getting help, and we can go ahead and arm ourselves. You were just talking about the situation in Ohio State, kind of doing that within our own home. We get ourselves to a safe place, we call for help, and we arm ourselves. So we have the range exercise at the end, in which they're required to, in place, they're required to put into practice all of these things that we've suggested to them. So it's done on an individual basis, one student at a time goes. And if you can visualize, an indoor shooting range, we're downrange using that because it's closed off for our class. And way down toward the backstop, near where the targets are, I've got a table set up. On that table, we're going to have a variety of objects, including a couple of quick access vaults. I even have a classic old hollowed out book, because I'm a fan of doing the things the old-fashioned way sometimes, and a couple of boxes, things like that down there on this table. And so the idea is we lead one student at a time, and they bring their handgun, which is unloaded, and a spare magazine, which has ammunition in it. They bring them down and they put them in the lockbox. Then they return to where the rest of the students are, which is uprange. And one of their requirements is, they keep their backs to their back turned, and I have the opportunity to do something unexpected. I want to throw something a little unexpected into it. So depending on what I've already seen about the student's skill level, I may or may not do something to, disruptive, like move their magazine to a different place or reorient the gun. Remember, this is an unloaded gun that we've cleared, so I may orient it in a different way. I've been known to do things, dastardly things like disassemble a gun, and when they reach into the box, they pull out just the frame, in the slide and barrel or separate from them. So I have the opportunity with some of these shooters to do something that they don't expect, and that's where that basic setup there. And I think it's important to understand, especially the folks who are listening haven't yet read the article, hopefully are going to read the article. I think it's important to understand a lot of this is a contrivance designed to make the student multitask, make them think on their feet a little bit. Obviously, we're not going to recommend that every student put a empty gun separate from a loaded magazine in a lockbox and then have to locate that, get the gun out of the lockbox and load the gun. But we make it a requirement in the class because it gives them something else that they need to accomplish. So I think it's important to understand that this is, we take some of this in order to make the task a little more engaging than it normally would be, especially for somebody who's already really skilled with this. They're going to have there's going to be an easier time of it. So if I do something unexpected, when they have their opportunity to do the thing there, if something that they didn't expect happens and they react to it, that helps bring the more realistic level of stress, so to speak, into the fold. And that basic setup is where I began seeing the thing that I eventually ended up talking about in the article, and that thing was this. We have several, obviously at Blackwing, at the shooting center, we have a lot of the blue guns. A lot of your listeners, viewers here are familiar with what a blue gun is, just a solid plastic replica of a real gun that can be used, for a variety of things in training where we wouldn't want to risk the using a real gun or damaging a real gun or something like that. You have the blue guns. They're essentially one-to-one copies. They're exact physical copies, but obviously they have no operating parts. And what has happened is somebody will show up at the class and they will have their personal gun. I happen to have a blue gun replica of that gun. So one of my favorite mess with the student tricks was, after they put their gun in the box and turn away and move away from me, I open the box, pull their gun out, and replace it with an identical blue gun. This is, so when they're given the go signal and they have to move urgently down, yelling at the attacker to get out of their house or yelling at their spouse to call 911, and they reach the lockbox and they put in the combination and pop it open, they're always thinking a step ahead. They're grabbing the cell phone, they're trying to dial 911, they're thinking a step ahead, and they reach in and they grab it and they pull it out, and instead of their gun, it's a blue gun. Pretty simple trick. That is where the whole article comes into play there. What I noticed over and over happening over a very extended period of time, we'd run several of these classes, depending on the demand, we'd 3, 4, 5 a year, and we're talking sometimes as many as 10 a year, and we're talking over a 3-year period or so, or maybe closer to a 4-year period. We're watching this happen, and what'll happen is they'll reach in, they'll pull out the blue gun. They don't seem to recognize that it's a blue gun. They'll grab their loaded magazine of ammunition and they will attempt to insert it into the gun. And while this is happening, they're looking directly at this. They're looking right at the gun, and it usually takes bonking that loaded magazine into the bottom of the blue gun twice, maybe 3 times, over maybe a full 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds before the realization happens that it's a blue gun. It's not their real gun. It's not even the same color as their real gun. And the first time I saw it, it just blew my mind. And I thought, that is the weirdest thing I ever saw. I even asked a student about it, and he had no recollection. And so as we
really, he didn't recall that he had done this.
No, he was in such a hurry. He didn't even, everything went by in a blur, according to him. Well, it began happening on a regular basis. In fact, it happened so often, I would tell other people, watch this, it's going to happen. And it would happen. And obviously, you eventually begin wondering, why is that? what is going on here that they're not recognizing the blue gun? And I figured it had something to do with they're just in such a hurry, they're getting ahead of themselves. But I wanted to do a little more research on it. And of course, I'm a layman. I don't know the first thing about stress-related psychology, neurology, any of these things like that. But what I do know is the address of my local public library here in Delaware, Ohio. So again, being an old-fashioned type guy, I drove down to the library and went in and found in the nonfiction stacks, I found books on neuroscience. And I eventually located one that was written as kind of a broad introduction to neuroscience, written for the layman perspective, like me, something I could understand. And I began reading that. And it was a fascinating book, wonderful book, which I cite in the article, obviously. It was a great read, but the important thing is I found something that made me believe I was on the right track. I think I found in that book the explanation for what I was seeing. And the explanation, the short version of it is, whenever we're doing anything, whenever our brains and our bodies are functioning around, we only have so much energy to devote. Some of the energy goes to the brain's computing power, so to speak. Some of the energy goes to the body's machine power moving around. And when we put ourselves under stress, or we get in that hurry, situation, something like that, the brain begins to do stranger things. It begins to reallocate those energy sources. And a lot of us who are familiar with self-defense know about the adrenaline type, the body's ability to temporarily have greater strength or speed or something like that, and then it has some effect on our cognitive abilities, what we're perceiving going on in our brain. Well, the simple explanation was that there's only so much power that can be given over to these certain tasks, and as it gets reallocated, some of these things are considered, are put onto a back burner, so to speak. And according to the text on neuroscience, the way the visual systems work is, since the brain already had a picture of what it knew was in the box, what it expected to be in the box, and it had bigger problems to worry about, it knew what was in the box. It didn't actually, the incoming reflected light going into the eyeballs that showed the blue gun, that information wasn't being processed. It was being set aside momentarily, so to speak, and the brain was replacing it with a picture it already had. And that picture, presumably was of the real gun. And this seemed to be an explanation of why they were looking directly at the blue gun with their eyes and yet not seeing it for what it really was, until, a couple of attempts to stick the magazine in, which of course is not going to happen. After the first or second attempt, that sets off some kind of an alarm bell, and now suddenly the priority returns to the visual system, the brain saying, why isn't this working? And it goes to the eyeballs to go back and look at what it is, and that's when the recognition took place. And I know I'm not really skilled at explaining this, but it seemed to be a case of the brain not processing the visual information because it wanted to do something else first. And the book went on to explain that this is a very frequent occurrence under stress, and it manifests in all kind of different ways. But this seemed to be the most plausible explanation of why I had students looking directly at blue plastic guns and not knowing that they were blue plastic guns, at least for a second, or so.
So essentially what it comes down to is the mind. The mind has an expectation because it's got some familiarity with what's going on. So it expects to find this thing in this place at this time, and it's going to simply assume that that's correct and go off and do more important things until it becomes physically aware that something is wrong here. And only then is it going to come back and look at it. Is that a fair summation?
That's exactly it. One of the startling things, to read the book, according to neuroscience, it's so easy for us to think of our brain as sitting up, in the attic that is our skull, and it's looking out through the two windows of the eyeballs. But the truth is, the brain never ever gets to interact with the outside world. All it does is process sensory input. It's, the brain never has and never will see anything. In fact, the book goes on to say that what we see of like color and odor and taste and those things that are so normal in our world, don't really exist that way. They're only the way our brain interprets what it believes is going on around it. So your brain is constantly has this working model of reality, and it's constantly updating and fiddling with the model. And then when we put it under stress, it has to reallocate those resources. For that brief moment of time, that visual input isn't as important as some of the other things, and so the brain simply substitutes the model. And in the model, that was the real gun that went in the box. That's that's what the brain knows. And so it is substituted it's gone to the model and substituted its expectation for what was in the box until the evidence tells it that something is wrong, and it goes back to the primary information gathering it gets through the visual system, and then sees what the problem is. And granted, this is all taking place in just a second or so, somewhere between a half a second to, I think the longest I ever saw it go on was about 2 seconds. While somebody was trying to do something else at the same time, looking at the blue gun. So we're really talking about something that happens in the blink of an eye, but it was a really, really fascinating phenomena. And the fact that I continued to see it over and over, it became almost predictable, led me to want to experiment with a little bit. And that's the other component of that article, was trying to draw some conclusions through experimentation. So,
it's interesting because one of the things that I often talk about in classes, and I'm sure you do too, is that the reality is that the body is going to do very specific things. And we know what those specific things are, and we can pretty much count on those specific things happening. And I know that and there may even be a few people watching tonight who are thinking, "Oh, but I'm special. I won't do that." But in reality, I mean, this is how our brain has evolved to deal with information, and pretty much everybody's brain in terms of dealing with sensory input works pretty much the same. And I think it's important to note that this happened, as you said, over a lot of students over a lot of time. So this is not just a one-off, is it?
No, it certainly wasn't. And like I say in the article, I had the opportunity to do some experimentation with it, and trying to get a better sense of how this thing was what was really happening. And so, and although there are a lot of variables in play, and certainly I'm no scientist, and there's probably all kinds of holes in it. But what I did was I began trying to pay attention to things like, if I substituted a blue gun, which is a piece of polymer, a piece of plastic, if I tried to substitute that for a student who had, say, an all metal gun, an all steel gun, two specific examples, I substituted a 1911 and I substituted a Beretta 92. And the results seemed to be that there was, because there was another component in there, as opposed to, say, a Glock or something, there was another component in there. When the student reached in and grabbed the blue gun for the 1911, they started to fall for it, but quickly, the other sensory input, this thing doesn't weigh what it should. They somehow recognize, and I'm assuming it was the weight, they somehow recognized this wasn't the real thing. The same thing occurred with a Beretta Model 92. I put a Beretta 92 blue gun in, and I actually had an opportunity to do that twice to two different people. The first one recognized immediately, this is not the real gun. The second one actually fell for it. They actually pulled it out and went to load it. And so I can't really definitively say that the gun's weight or even the texture of the material, but the most consistent, getting people to fall for it, because by this time I'm wanting this to happen. The most consistent performance I had were with the polymer defensive guns. Glock 17s is my most frequent victim, was the Glock 17, especially the third generation, because I happen to have access to a bunch of blue guns. I've got a fluorescent orange blue gun, I've got a gray blue gun, I've got an actual blue gun, and that was another interesting thing. The fact that they yanked the fluorescent orange gun out, which is even farther away from reality than their real gun, didn't seem to have any effect on it. And I kind of concluded it didn't matter what color the blue gun was. They either fell for it or they didn't. but the fact is they were still looking directly down on it. So that to me lends support to the idea I got from the book, that even though their eyes were looking at it, they weren't really seeing. They weren't really seeing it. They were looking at, the brain was using its model and not actually seeing because the bright orange or the gray or the blue didn't make any difference.
One of the things that I teach students to do, and I know you teach students to do as well, is to reload the gun without looking at it. And I don't know about you, but I certainly get a lot of pushback on that, because people want to say, well, I'm going to put the gun up to my face, and in my peripheral vision, I'll be able to watch my reload, and it will be faster. And my response has always been, that's great on the range when your when your natural threat responses haven't been activated. But as far as I can see, the science says that, yeah, that's probably not going to happen, because you're going to be fixated on the threat. This would tend to support that idea that just because you're putting the gun up in front of your face doesn't mean that you're actually going to see that. And do you think that's a legitimate conclusion from what you've been watching?
Well, yeah, it certainly jives with what I've been seeing, and I'm in full agreement with you. As you know, I teach that as well, and I think what this whole experience, the beginning to pay attention to what was going on, and playing with this a little bit with my unsuspecting students. And I even invited coworkers without telling what was going on, and had them rehearse drills. And I've had coworkers fall for it as well. Have the same thing happen with them. I need to rehearse this drill, so you're going to be my student, and then not tell them what I was really doing. And I've had the same result. So it seems to be a human thing. And like I say, the lesson I seem to draw from it, or the suggestion, may be a better word, that I'm drawing from it, is it seems that under that kind of stress, the brain will revert. It will use that model to fill in the gaps where it's trying to pay attention to something else. Now, certainly, if there were a lethal threat in front of you, the evidence is telling us that our attention is going to fixate on that. So any attempt to look at that familiar object, whether it's the doorway of our house or the gun in our hand or something like that, might lead to that substitution effect that I was seeing. So I would say, and I framed that in the article, I would say, if somebody is thinking, gosh, should I look at the gun or not look at the gun? I'm going to say, don't look at the gun. And here's yet another reason why not to look at the gun, is your brain might fool you. Your brain may not have caught up yet with what it's actually looking at. It may temporarily shut down the visual input in order to emphasize something else there for a fraction of a second, and it may not be what you're really, what you are really seeing there in front of you. And I don't know how consistently this works. I did notice that my new students, it's an open enrollment type course, so I would have students who were very, very skilled and experienced shooters, and I had students who were very new to this. The newer students are very deliberate and very careful, and they didn't seem to want to fall for it as fast. They would almost never, I would never had one try to load a blue gun. It was because they were my conclusion is they were moving much slower, and they were much more fixed on that task. So their task was get the gun out and load it. They're not very experienced and smooth and fast at doing this, so they were slow and paying attention to it. The experienced shooters, the ones who had done this 1,000 times, were the ones who kept trying to load blue guns, and I think that lends support to that substitution. The brain went to its familiar model, as opposed to actually seeing what it was really doing at that fraction of a second in time.
It's that mental model that gets people.
Yeah.
This is a fascinating article, and I'll have a direct link to the article in the show notes for those of you who want to take a look at it. And of course, if you just go to articles on the menu bar here at Personal Defense Network, go to recent articles, you'll find it. And it is worth reading. And particularly if you're an instructor, you need to understand this stuff. You need to understand how the body reacts and how the brain processes information, because it affects how and what we train. Andy, tell us how people can get in touch with you.
Okay. Well, as you say, I'm the lead instructor up at Blackwing Shooting Center in Delaware, Ohio. And so they can always visit Blackwing's website, which is www.blackwing.sc, short for shooting center.com. There's a link on the training page where you can send the training folks a message, and that certainly gets to me. If you want to talk to me personally, you can reach me through Mid-Ohio IMB's email, and that would be andy@midohioimb.com. That's the IMB Academy Mid-Ohio version that, my wife Julie, as you mentioned, runs that show over there. And I have access to that 24/7, but you can certainly always reach me through Blackwing. And of course, I've got my bio page up at the Personal Defense Network. I've done a few articles up in there. Although you're right, this is my first visit on your show.
Well, great. Thank you for coming on, Andy. Because this is, like I said, this is a fascinating article. I'm glad that somebody actually took the time and trouble to do this, and because it is amazing. And the funny thing is that once you understand how the brain processes information, it makes complete sense. So thanks for coming on, and I hope we can have you on again soon.
Oh, sure. Thanks for having me, Grant.
You bet, Andy. All right.
Bye-bye.
So great discussion with Andy. Like I said, this is just amazing that, but again, it just reinforces what we've been talking about how the brain processes information. Again, it's important that you understand this, and particularly if you're an instructor, you need to understand how and why things happen. And we don't have enough of that in the defensive training world, unfortunately. So I'm glad that Andy had a chance to do that experiment. Before we get to some of the other stuff we're going to do tonight, I want to talk to a little bit about Personal Defense Network Premium membership. Now, you're probably familiar with the public side here at Personal Defense Network with all the great free articles and all the great free videos and all that kind of thing. But there's another part to Personal Defense Network, and that's premium membership side. And that's where we have all of the full length videos, the DVD length videos. That's where we have all of our classes and all that kind of thing. There's as much great information as on the public side here at Personal Defense Network. There's even more on in the premium side. We've just got a lot of information from a lot of really great instructors on that side. You'll find people like, of course, our own Rob Pincus, but you'll find people like martial arts legend Cecil Birch. You're going to find Claude Werner. You might even find yours truly on the premium side of Personal Defense Network. Lots and lots of great stuff. I've been a premium member since we started it a few years ago, and I haven't seen everything yet. That's how much great stuff we have there. And usually this is $34.95 a year to get access to premium membership. But because you're watching this show, you can get your first year of premium membership to Personal Defense Network for only $10. $10. That's like 72% off. That's better than Black Friday. I mean, you go to a big retailer on Black Friday. Yeah, so you may save 10, 15%. This is huge, people. This is huge. $10 for your first year. So how do you get this deal? You want to know? Well, I'll tell you. Go sign up for premium membership at Personal Defense Network. And when you get to the checkout part, there'll be a little box there where you can put a coupon code or discount code. Put in the code GRANT10, G-R-A-N-T, the number 1, the number 0, all one word, GRANT10, and you'll get your first year of premium membership at Personal Defense Network for only $10. It's a steal of a deal. It's great. You'll love it. Your friends will love it. Your family will love it. And trust me, you're going to find a ton of great information there that we don't have time, quite frankly. We don't have the space to show on the public side of Personal Defense Network. Like I said, DVD length videos, exclusive access to classes, exclusive discounts on things, exclusive sneak previews of things that you don't see here on the public side of Personal Defense Network. So sign up your first year for $10. Code is Grant10, Grant, the number 1, the number 0, all one word, and you'll get that discount. So before we get to my next guest, I have a viewer email that I want to answer. And as I said at the beginning, I decided to answer this tonight primarily because I'm lazy and I really don't want to type this all out. And I got, excuse me, this question from Stacy. And Stacy said that I'm relatively new to EDCing a handgun, and that means everyday carrying a handgun. And I'm looking for a new holster, and I have a hybrid holster, which is one that combines leather and Kydex, or leather and plastic. Excuse me. Now, and I'm looking for something I'm not really all that happy with. I'm looking for something else, and I'm finding that there are a choice between leather and Kydex. And what do you use and why? Fair enough. Okay. Let's start with leather. Leather has been the traditional material for holsters since, I don't know, probably since handguns were invented. And I mean, we had handguns, we had cows, so it seemed logical to make holsters out of cows. And so the leather holster became the predominant holster. Now, leather holsters are really great because, and here's a leather holster I just happen to have. Leather holsters are great because they're kind of flexible, right? They mold to your contours, which is really great. It may, over time, they mold to your contours and get more and more comfortable as you wear them. The problem is that with leather holsters is that they, as they're conforming to you, they're also kind of wearing out. And as a result, the holster gets a little weak. And after a while, it just kind of collapses like that. I don't know if you can see that, but here's where the trigger guard would go. This is for a revolver. Cylinder goes there, and the trigger guard, the trigger is here. And after a while, these things just kind of collapse. And as the holster gets more and more broken in, it becomes easier and easier to collapse. This makes it very difficult to reholster the gun when you need to, and also can become a bit of a safety issue if you've got one that's worn enough that this part where the trigger guard goes in kind of folds over a little bit like that on a really well broken in holster. And it can cause an accidental discharge of the gun. So pluses and minuses to the leather holsters. The Kydex holsters, on the other hand, here's one. This is, again, one of my personal ones. The Kydex holsters are rigid from the factory. They never change that rigidity. They're always like that. And they don't mold to fit you. You pretty much have to mold to fit them because these things, they're not going to give, right? They're very, very hard. And so that's the downside. On the plus side, because of the fact that the holsters don't wear over time, they will always work as well as they did when they were new. Now, one of the problems with a leather holster is when it's new, and this one is relatively new, and you have to, not only does it have to break into your body, it also has to break into the gun. So you end up having to do a lot of draw and reholster repetitions with these things to get it to the point that the gun will slide in easily and slide out easily. When they're new, they grab onto the gun. They're very difficult to reholster. They're very difficult to draw from. So you do need to work them in. You need to break them into the gun. The nice thing about the Kydex holsters is that they're broken in from the factory. The guns just drop in. This one has an adjustment here, so you can adjust how much tension is on the gun, so you can adjust how hard it is to draw from. But from day one, the gun is easy to get in and out of it, and that never changes. So pluses and minuses for both of them. Now, the question was, what do I use? Well, as you can see, I mean, I have both of these. I'm a relatively new convert to these newfangled darn things. And I resisted the plastic holsters, the Kydex holsters, the thermomolded holsters, whatever you want to call them, for the longest time. And I picked this one up, I don't know, 2, 3 years ago when I got a new gun. This one is for a Steyr S9A1, which is the auto pistol that I carry. And I decided, well, I got a new gun. Why not a new holster? And I figured, well, it's a plastic gun. Why not a plastic holster? So I tried these things out. And I got to tell you, I'm a convert to these things. Now, here's the thing. Leather looks wonderful. It really does. I love the craftsmanship that goes into making a good leather holster. I really do. I like the colors. I like the smell. I like everything about these things. But the reality is, these just work better. They're, yeah, okay. They're kind of ugly. They're soulless. They don't smell. Nothing pleasant about them, but they work, and they work really, really well. So I'm a convert to the Kydex holsters, and as time goes on, slowly I'm going to convert all of my guns to Kydex holsters because they just work. So that's my 2 cents on holsters. Thanks a lot for writing in. I hope that answers the question, and now you can see why I didn't want to write this all down in an email. So again, I am fundamentally lazy, and that works to your advantage here on Personal Defense Network. All right. My second guest tonight has been on before, Josh Gideon of No Soft Targets and of JoshuaGideon.com. And he wrote an interesting article recently on the future of training. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that are coming up in the training world and what may be happening in terms of technology and that sort of thing. Josh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Grant.
Hey, well, welcome back. Glad to have you back. So you wrote this article on the future of self-defense training. And I wanted to get your thoughts, just a few of your thoughts on this, and talk about new approaches and new technology and all that kind of thing. In the past, if we wanted training, we had to travel. We had to go someplace where somebody was teaching a class that we could take. That's kind of changing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think what we're starting to see is, at the university level, we're starting to see more and more online classes and, some of that material converting over to a more digital format. A few different methods of delivery of that information. So I think we're starting to see that the self-defense training world starting to catch up to that.
So that's and this is, I mean, we're kind of behind the times in this, aren't we?
Yeah, I really think so. It's nothing for a young college student to hop online and take a class. Where for in the self-defense world, it's kind of that's kind of uncharted territory. It's newer technology for us.
And in the article, you talked about all the various different ways in which training can happen, right. And tell me a little bit. Tell me this. What is the difference between video-based learning, which you talk about, and self-paced learning?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So a video-based program, it would be something like Personal Defense Network has, where they have videos that are posted on their page that you can watch, or like YouTube videos that may have some training or something like that you can kind of watch and learn from. The self-paced learning program actually has some more content built into it. So it's not just a video, it's also maybe some reading material built in, some quizzes to verify that you are understanding the topic that's being discussed. And, obviously if you have problems with that quiz, with certain questions on the quiz, in a self-based program, it would come back and help you pick up where you're not understanding, mm-hmm. and kind of help you along. But it's self-paced in that you get to do it on your own time. Go ahead.
So what I think the what I'm hearing kind of is the major difference is accountability, right? Because
Yeah.
with a video based learning, no accountability. Self-based learning, even though you're directing what's happening, you're still sort of accountable for the results, right?
Right, absolutely. I think you're getting a little bit more verification that the material that they're going through is actually, being understood,
Okay.
and that's good for both. That's good for both parties. The instructor needs to know that too. It's one thing to put out a video and hope that everybody gets what you're saying. It's another to be able to actually produce content and verify that the people going through it are getting what you're saying.
Okay. The question, and for I just talked about premium membership here. We do on the premium side for some of the courses that we're just starting to bring out. We're doing that combination self-paced learning thing on the premium side here too now.
Right.
The question I have for you: can someone really learn self-defense skills in this way, in these new ways?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of the content that you can learn. Obviously, it's never going to be a complete replacement for a good instructor that can observe what you're doing and help you correct, any mistakes that you're making. We're always going to need some need for that. We're always going to have some need for that. However, there's a lot of, if you look at a class a lot of your typical classes that you take, a good majority of that could be done in an environment like a self-paced learning program.
Right.
And we got to kind of face the reality that people just don't have the time like they used to be able to go through those type of courses now.
Mhm.
You're being able to take a self-paced class and take 15 minutes here and 15 minutes there and 30 minutes, there to be able to go through a course and truly be able to understand it and focus on it. There's a lot of value to that, where, these are people that may have not even taken training, any type of training, because they couldn't get to that class in Phoenix, Arizona that they have to fly to.
Right.
So that's just how it works.
So do you think that the in-person classes,
Mhm.
the type of classes that we've typically associated with self-defense skills and knowledge, do you think those in-person classes will ever go away?
I think they're going to evolve. I'm not sure that they're going to go completely away. Um, I do see. I see them maybe evolving and being more uh, regional based, maybe a combination of your online and in-person training. Uh, it would be a little bit more efficient. I imagine what would normally be, say, a 2-day course. Okay. Reality is, you're talking, let's just say 16 hours of material there. Some of it classroom, some of it, on the range or whatever, or
Right.
drills or whatever the type of course it is. Well, what if you could take 10 hours of that, put it online, let them go through that, in months leading up to a in-person course. Now you're only asking them for 6 hours of their time, in
Okay.
person. And so that may be a little bit more palatable for some people. They may actually have the time to do that.
From a teaching standpoint, having students come into the class who are familiar with the concepts and the things that I'm going to be asking them to do, that would save me some time. And I think, especially when we're talking about the conceptual stuff, would also give them better understanding, because it's really hard when you're standing on a range or in the gym or whatever you're doing for the self-defense class. It's sometimes a lot of really hard to get people to focus on the conceptual stuff, because all they want to do is the fun stuff, the physical skills.
Right.
And I think it would certainly help me to be able to say, okay, here's 5 hours or 10 hours or whatever it is of background information of the stuff that you need to know before you get here. And and I know you teach a lot of stuff as well. I'm sure that would probably help you too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. How great would it be to know that, all 10 students that are showing up for a course not only have been through that material, but that they have understood the material because they've tested through it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. That's that saves us so much more time, and we can get more into the meat of the hands-on portion and actually help them even further. More than what you would get. In a typical class, you're going to have some students that are a little bit further behind than others.
Right.
Imagine having everybody on the same level there.
And
Wow.
that would actually be great for a change. It really would. So tell me, because and you're a technology guy. I mean, you work with technology every day, and you've been working with this stuff a long time. Where do you see self-defense training going in say 10 years from now? At the rate of technological progress, 10 years is a long time. Where do you see our self-defense teaching going in say 10 years?
Well, I think that interactive, self-paced training with a little bit more of the, I guess, webinar type situation where you have some one-on-one, and I think virtual reality technology in 10 years from now will probably play a very big role in that.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. With the advances of the virtual reality technology, I really think that we will be able to do a little bit more on the instructor side that we would normally have to do hands-on. Mm-hmm. I think we'll see that technology evolving to the point where we can start doing some of that remotely.
So you mean to tell me that virtual reality isn't just for gaming?
Oh, totally. But
besides that, though,
no, there's, look at it. The military's already using that technology.
Okay.
Pilots are doing virtual reality simulations before they ever step foot in the cockpit.
Yeah.
That technology is going to come. Maybe not in 10 years. I don't know. We'll see how quickly it advances, but it seems to be advancing pretty fast.
So a quick question for you. We don't have a lot of time, but a quick question for you. Why do you think the self-defense training business has been kind of slow to move into the future, to adopt some of the technology that's coming up?
I think it might hurt some pocketbooks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think we've developed a culture of, come to me.
Right.
This is the class I have a range here. I have a gym here. I have a conference center here. Come to me and do the classes. This takes a little bit more effort to put together. I'm still building some classes that I haven't released yet. And it's taking time. You got to do the videos. There's some work behind the scenes to put all that together. Mm-hmm. And it's easier just to show up and teach class.
And, and once you've got the real estate and investment in the real estate,
that's right.
You kind of want to make that pay off. So
right. The beauty is that with the new technology is that we can penetrate markets that are not being touched right now.
Right.
areas that can't get this kind of training because they don't have the facilities available.
And maybe it'll allow us to get to some people who really need it. Who aren't
Absolutely.
getting it now. So, Josh, tell people how they can get in touch with you.
They can go to my website, joshuagideon.com, and I have all my contact information there. You can email me at josh at joshuagideon.com. And I'm on Facebook, social medias. You can typically search for my name and find me there as well.
Okay, great. Well, great. Thanks for coming on the show again.
Thanks for having me.
Sharing that information with us, and we'll see each other again soon. Okay.
All right, sounds good.
All right, everybody. We're just about out of time. Just really quickly, don't forget the coupon code for premium membership: $10 for your first year. Grant 10, GRANT10. All one word. You can always contact me at grant@grantcunningham.com. Please send me your emails. I'd love to get them. You can also reach me there at my website, grantcunningham.com. Of course, right here at Personal Defense Network, the first and third Thursday of every month. And of course, our next episode will be December 15th, which is the third Thursday of December of this month. So be sure to check that out. All over on social media. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I've got a personal page. I've got a business page. You can catch me there. Of course, the stuff here at Personal Defense Network. And we'll see you again real soon. In fact, December 15th at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and we'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We really do appreciate it. Stay safe.